Number 1. In the Corn. My neighborhood had one of those corn mazes every fall. Honestly, I did not quite understand them. It was supposed to be a Halloween attraction, but I could never figure out what corn mazes had to do with Halloween. And it wasn't like it was a haunted corn maze. I've seen those since. It was simply a corn maze that you were supposed to find your way through. The maze did change every year, so it was a new challenge to go through. Now, although I didn't understand the point of these, that didn't mean that I did not enjoy them. I, in fact, loved the corn maze. This was in spite of what happened to me the very first time I went through one. I was 8 years old at the time. My parents didn't work a traditional weekday schedule, and this made things pretty easy on us when it came to going places. What I mean is that we were able to go places when they weren't busy. For example, if you went to see a movie at noon on a weekday, you could enjoy a nearly empty theater. The corn maze opened on a Wednesday. I thought this was odd too. My mom took us to it that afternoon, and yep, it was completely empty. The attendant told my mom that if we wanted to, we could go through the maze one by one. This would make it more challenging. I begged my mom to let me go through it first, and I did. Even though it was in the middle of the day, I was still scared. It was creepy, sneaking through the maze like that. There were many dead ends, and I hit most of them. An 8-year-old mind could get very paranoid about hitting so many of them. Even though I didn't give it much mind, my brain did start worrying about me not being able to find my way out of the maze. I then heard a voice. I wasn't sure where it was coming from, nor what it actually said at first, but it was a human voice. I began wondering if I had taken so long in the maze that they sent another one of my family members through it. Maybe it was my brother, and he had come looking for me. I tried to follow the voice when I heard it again. I actually followed right into another dead end. I was about to turn around and try a different pathway when I finally heard and understood what the voice said.
Come into the corn.
I was a little freaked out. For some reason, that just seemed like a really weird thing for someone to say if they were in the maze. It was also scary because I couldn't tell where the voice was coming from. I wondered if it was from the other side of the corn wall.
Come into the corn.
I asked if anyone was there. There was a long pause. Then I heard again.
Come into the corn.
I asked where the person talking was talking from, and the only answer I received was,
Come into the corn.
Then, while staring at the corn wall, I watched an arm come out of the corn wall. Seeing the arm come out, I suddenly felt my eyes focus, and I finally was able to see the person crouched down in the corn. He beckoned at me.
Come into the corn.
I didn't know who this was, so I turned and I started running. I didn't know if he was chasing after me, though. All I heard were my own footsteps and my heart beating in my ears. Finally, I ran into my brother. He was wondering why I was so freaked out. I explained it, and he took me back towards the entrance to the maze. We told the attendant that someone was hiding in the corn and was trying to get me to walk into it. He went and checked in the corn maze. He claimed he didn't find anything, but he gave my parents their money back. He also insisted that we were the very first customers, so he had no idea how anyone had gotten in or out of the maze. And to this day, I can still see that person crouching in the corn, beckoning me. Number 2. The Figure. I used to work in one of those haunted corn mazes. Well, I actually did not work in one of them. The people who worked in the corn mazes were people dressed up as monsters and ghosts. I was a ticket taker. Well, in addition to taking tickets, I was also the person who cleaned up after the maze was closed down. And we stayed open until midnight. And by the time we got all the people out of the maze, cleaned up after them, and closed up shop, it was usually around 1 in the morning. On the particular night that this story took place, it was the night right before Halloween, so we were busy. Also, the other ticket taker called in, and that made me the only person who was there. I can't say I was too happy about that. Although the time went by really quickly, I barely had a chance to breathe. But before I knew it, the day was over. The people and all of the actors had cleared out. I let them all go home, and before I knew it, the once completely packed area was empty, except for me. Walking over to the maze, I realized that the actors hadn't really cleaned up the maze. People were allowed to bring food with them in there, and I noticed that there were several food wrappers on the ground. I didn't want to leave it for the next day, so I grabbed a broom and one of those standing dustpans and went to clean up. I have to admit to feeling a bit of a buzz as I walked through the maze. Although I had been in it by myself before, this was the first time that I had done it in the middle of the night. It was eerily quiet, save for the sounds of bugs and stuff. I had a map of the maze with me so I wouldn't get lost. I had to use the flashlight on my cell phone in order to see it. I'm not sure how long I had been in the maze before I began to feel like I was being watched. Hell, it was a haunted corn maze, though. I was able to brush it off, because being scared was exactly how I was supposed to feel. But the feeling didn't really go away either. It wasn't too long before I began hearing little noises. At first, it was simple little things, like the corn stalks rustling. That could be chalked up to the wind, though. But I also thought I was hearing footsteps. But cliché-like, whenever I stopped walking, they stopped too. So I chalked that one up to my imagination. What I couldn't brush off was the sound of a can crushing, as if someone had stepped on it. I immediately called out to check if anyone was there. I got no answer, and a few minutes later, I heard a similar noise. I called out again. There was nothing. The general anxiety I felt was beginning to develop into paranoia. I thought there was someone in the maze with me. I immediately thought it was one of the actors. It was technically Halloween now. Maybe he remained in the maze and didn't clean it up on purpose, drawing me into it in an attempt to scare me. So I called out and told whomever it was that I wouldn't be scared. I was lying, just a little bit though. I was scared, and the more intermittent noises I heard, the more times I called out with no answer forthcoming, the more paranoid I got about what was going on. And finally, it was more than enough. I wasn't completely finished cleaning the maze, but I decided the rest of it would have to wait. If it did happen to be one of the actors following me around in the maze, then I would make them clean up in the morning. I made my way back to the entrance of the maze. I didn't hear any more noises as I went along. I went out and went to close the ticket booth. When I was about done, I quickly shot a look back at the maze. I jumped when I saw a figure standing in the way. I didn't know who it was, and by looking at the size of the guy, I figured that there was no way it was any of the actors. This guy was much taller than any of the actors we had working, and I realized that he had been following me around the maze. He didn't make a move toward me, but I really didn't give him much of a chance to anyway. I had the lockbox with the ticket money in it. I figured that was probably what he was after. Then a weird thought struck me. If he was after the money, why was he following me around the maze? And like an idiot, I had left the box laying on the ticket booth. The only other explanation was that he was after me. I grabbed the box and sprinted over to my car. Looking back once, I saw the man standing now by the ticket booth. Fortunately, this wasn't a horror movie, and the car started immediately. I pulled out and left. The following morning, I arrived at the corn maze. I asked everyone if they had been there past closing, or if they knew anyone who had, and no one did. Whoever the man was that was following me around in the corn maze, he was not supposed to be there. Number 3. Scream Maze. I am not sure if this story is YouTube friendly at the moment, but it's the scariest night of my life. I kid you not, this story is 100% true. It sounds like a horror movie, but this very well could have been something in a scary movie, and could happen to anyone. My boyfriend and I are into making love secretly in public places. We have a list of places of where to do it. We call it our fuck it list. Get it? Like a bucket list? Anyway, one location was a cornfield around Halloween. We're sitting on the couch, bored, taking shots of vodka, not looking forward to having kids ringing on the doorbell all night. Halloween night, obviously. So we decided to visit a corn maze. We dress in warm clothes and get on our way. We both know how the night will end. Making love in a cornfield. One more to cross off our fuck it list. We go through the maze with the different jump scares. We scream and giggle, and we're having a blast. After a while, we didn't get any more jump scares. It was very dark, and for some stupid reason, we didn't bring our phones. Looking back, I think we didn't bring them so we could immerse ourselves more into the scares of Halloween. We had no clue what time it was, and it turns out the maze was closed. Him and I, admittedly very tipsy, ended up going off the stupid path into the corn stalks. We found a wooden fence which was perfect for my boyfriend of 3 years to bend me over. We began caressing each other's faces, pushing our lips together. He pushes my skirt up and begins pulling my tights down. When I hear a snap, I have severe anxiety, and I know that doesn't fit with someone who is down to do this kind of thing in public, but I am who I am. I lift my hand up and put it on my boyfriend's chest, signaling that I want him to stop. I turn my head in the direction of the single snap. "Shh, babe, did you hear that?" He replies with, "No, I'm just focused on you." Well, usual boyfriend response. We begin again, but I'm getting nervous. Something doesn't feel right. I hear another snap, and I turn around immediately. "Okay, you can't tell me you didn't hear that," I whisper to my boyfriend. I see his face. He looks curious, concerned. I heard it that time. We stayed quiet. Nothing else was heard for at least 5 minutes, so we deduced it to be a raccoon or something, and got back to business. I start to hear heavy, deep breathing. "Did I wear you out already, Daddy?" I jokingly express. "Not at all, baby," my boyfriend replies. And that's when I realize he wasn't even out of breath. We must have been too into our activities that we didn't notice what was standing in front of us, watching us. There was a man standing at least 6'1" tall, dressed in a Scream costume, but instead of a knife, he held a machete. Scream was the first horror movie I ever saw, and always remained my #1 favorite movie, but not anymore. I'm 5'3", my boyfriend 5'6", so this guy was towering over us. I look up and scream out my boyfriend's name. He stops and looks up and yells, "Run! Follow me!" I'm directionally challenged, so if I ran, I would be lost for days. But on the other hand, my boyfriend somehow knows where he's going at all times, so I follow him. His Adidas and my snow boots track through the corn maze. I hear heavy footsteps following behind us, but not too closely. We finally reach the gate of the corn maze. It's obviously closed since the park is closed. We look back and see no one. He helps me over the fence and climbs over himself. We see our car is the only car in the lot. I turn around and see this guy hacking away at the gate with his machete. The links actually started to break. "Babe!" I yell out in absolute terror. He picks me up and runs to the car with me in his arms. "Get in the fucking car!" he yells at me. We both get in, and he peels out in his red Subaru STI. The last thing I saw was the machete-wielding Ghostface bending his body through the chain-linked fence he managed to chop away. He just stood there, watching us drive away into the moonlight, waving his machete in the air, as to say, we were the ones who got away. Next Halloween, we will just stay home with our cats and hand out candy. Also, never going to watch Scream ever again. Hey all, Killer Orange Cat here. I hope you enjoyed these 3 scary corn maze stories. I have to admit, I enjoyed this topic. After I published my Halloween video, which also had a corn maze story, I got several submissions. I've never been through a corn maze myself, but now I kinda think I want to. If you haven't already, feel free to check out the Killer Orange Cat subreddit, where the text versions of these stories have already been posted. And take a look at the merchandise store my sister set up for this channel. The links to both are included in the description to the channel. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider hitting the subscribe button below. Or use the icon of Ichigo that will appear at the end of this closing. Feel free to leave some comments to let me know what you thought of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please send it to the address included in the description. My only requirement is that the story is original, meaning it has not been read on any other YouTube channel. As we draw ever closer to Halloween, please don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.